As a mental health professional, I work with a lot of people whose beliefs about themselves, the world, and other people are keeping them really stuck and making them unhappy with life. And just as decluttering physical things can help us psychologically, so can decluttering our minds of unhelpful or negative beliefs. So in this video, I'm going to explore 5 common unhelpful or negative mindsets that you can declutter so that you can be happier in life and your mind is freed up to focus on the things that really matter to you. So unhelpful belief number 1 is worrying about what people think of you. We are social beings, so it's understandable that we want to fit in, we want people to like us, but the fact is that we can't control what other people think about us. Being preoccupied and worrying about what other people think can really get in the way of us living the life that we want. This is something I struggled with for many years, and it got in the way of me making the decisions that I really wanted because I was so worried about other people judging those decisions. And the fact is that people do judge one another. We see it all the time on social media, people making judgments about how other people choose to live their lives. But the thing is, if we allow those judgments to dictate what we do, we're less likely to live the life we want. All we can ever do at any one time is to take in all the relevant information and make a decision based on that. Of course, you might have people in your life who you trust and respect and whose opinion it is worth listening to. But listening to it doesn't mean to say that you have to go along with it. It's another piece of information that you can take on board, but ultimately the decision is down to you. Unhelpful mindset number 2 is not doing things for fear of failure. Fear is an evolutionary response, so it has a very helpful purpose, but it's also very powerful and it can get in the way of us doing the things we really want to do in life for fear that we'll fail or embarrass ourselves or that we won't be any good at it in the first place. A lot of times people see failure as being the end. If we fail at something, that must be a sign that we just need to give up altogether. However, if we can think differently about failure and see it more as an opportunity to learn, we step back, we think about what we did well, what didn't go so well, and what we can change going forward to carry on pursuing that goal. This isn't necessarily going to get rid of the fear of failure totally. Remember that fear is a useful emotion, but it can help us manage that fear more effectively. Unhelpful mindset number 3 is comparing yourself to others. Now, there's that well-known quote of comparison is the thief of joy. And certainly comparing ourselves to others can leave us feeling inadequate and as though we're behind in life. On the other hand, comparison can be useful, but only if we're using it in a way to improve rather than as a way to beat ourselves up or be derogatory towards ourselves. So think about someone you admire and you look up to. The key is that when we look at others and admire what they do, we don't need to look at ourselves and then say, oh, I'm less than because I'm not like that person. That tends to be our default because we are wired to be more critical. But turn that around and think about if there is somebody that really inspires you, how would you like to be more like that person? And of course, you need to stay true to yourself, but there might be certain qualities that you can start to bring in to yourself that will help you grow and develop as a person. And feel free to let me know down in the comments if there are any unhelpful or negative mindsets that you've managed to declutter so that they no longer impact your life. Unhelpful mindset number 4 is thinking that you need to do things perfectly or not at all. I do have perfectionistic tendencies. I used to think that I needed to either be the best at something or not do it at all. And because of this, I lost touch with doing things just for the pure pleasure of doing them. Perfection is a really difficult concept to define, I think, and I'm not sure we really can. So for example, if someone was to ask, well, what's your perfect day at home? What does that look like? My answer is probably going to be very different to your answer and the next person's answer. What I find enjoyable might be someone's worst nightmare and vice versa. So when we try to aim for perfection, and I include myself in this, I don't really think we know what we're aiming for. I think sometimes it tends to be more of a feeling, as though I'll know when I've attained perfection, but actually we think we've got to that point and then there's always something else we feel we need to do. So rather than aiming for perfection, how about aiming for good enough? But you need to get clear about what good enough is and what it means to you. So how are you going to measure when something is good enough? Because unless you can measure it, you won't know when you've reached it. Unhelpful mindset number 5 is being overly self-critical. Now, being critical of ourselves isn't bad in and of itself. Being critical of ourselves is a useful way to grow and develop over time. But because our minds are wired to think more negatively, we tend to use it as a way to beat ourselves up and put ourselves down. So what we need to do is learn to practice what's called compassion. And compassion is where we can acknowledge the suffering in ourselves and others and we make a commitment to alleviate or soothe that suffering. There's lots of research out there about self-compassion that has shown how beneficial it can be on our mental well-being. And compassion isn't about letting ourselves off the hook for the mistakes that we make. It's being able to acknowledge what went wrong, the part that we played in that, but then rather than beating ourselves up about it, thinking about what we can do differently in the future and striving towards being better. And if you want to learn more about compassion and different exercises that you can do, I've put a link to a website which has exercises on it as well. So as well as decluttering unhelpful or negative mindsets, it's also helpful to declutter our minds so that we can feel calmer and have more inner peace. And if you'd like to know some tips on how you can do this, then check out the video that's on the screen now. Thanks a lot for watching, take good care, and I'll see you again soon.